I'm sure, like you all, I was very distressed by some images that I saw on TV recently, and I don't want to get here into political commentary, except to say that we as Christians have a moral obligation to be sources of unity within our world. Now, this does not mean that we compromise on principles. It does not mean that we compromise on issues about which we must debate and fight peacefully for. We think of the rights of the unborn, the rights of the poor, the rights of the marginalized. But it seems to me that we as leaven in society, we as sons and daughters of God, Jesus who is the Prince of Peace, have an obligation to be sources of resistance to the way of the world, which is a way of, it's their fault, this group, that group, a splintering of society along sectarian lines. Part of what makes the Christian way of life scandalous is that we live according to a different standard. We give the other the benefit of the doubt. We don't throw people into big old buckets of they're this or they're that, but we encounter individuals. And it seems to me that the world needs this more than ever. That might be an exaggeration. We've seen some divisiveness in our nation and our world before, even as fiercely as we're experiencing now. All that to say, my brothers and sisters, you, especially you as parents, have a duty to live and to speak and to act differently than the world, to be sources of true peace, which is rooted in truth, which is rooted in authentic justice due to God and due to neighbor, but is not a way of viewing the world that is based upon sects, S-E-C-T-S, or divisions. Yes, the Lord has come to set the world ablaze. He has come to, as he says, set father against son and son against mother. It is true. The way of Christian discipleship is demanding, is challenging, and is different than others. But let the divisiveness that comes into our life for taking the faith seriously be the divisiveness of compassion, the divisiveness of standing firm on the rights of the marginalized and the unborn, the divisiveness that comes in our life by demanding second chances when others demand vengeance. Let this be our way. May we be sources of hope and healing in a very fractured nation and world. Another way that we as Christians are different than the rest of the world, other than just not crying for vengeance, but crying for understanding and reconciliation based upon Him who has reconciled heaven and earth, is our keeping of time, the way in which we keep time, which is different than the world. I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think from about the beginning of November, maybe even right after Halloween, I don't quite remember, until Christmas Day, Cool 108 was blasting wonderful Christmas songs. And I don't begrudge anybody for listening to those Christmas songs. But what I do want to remind us all is that for the Christian, for the Catholic, Christmas lasts until the baptism of the Lord, which is admittedly just tomorrow. And even there's a tradition, which we will keep here at Transfiguration, of keeping up the creche and even some of the Christmas regalia until the Feast of the Presentation, which actually isn't until February 2nd, when Jesus will be presented in the temple. So I just would encourage you all, if you haven't done already, maybe you have, no judgment here, but maybe for next year then, to keep up the Christmas stuff until at least the baptism of the Lord, which takes place the Sunday after Epiphany, typically, if I got my math right. I'm only paid to know this stuff, but it gets all kind of confusing with different days. But the fact is that the way that we keep time is important. Part of our Catholic culture is how we keep time differently. We have seasons as Catholics. So we got a full 40 days of Lent where we fast. And then we have a full 40 days of Easter and even 10 extra days until Pentecost to celebrate. There are these seasons. One of the ways in which a society is comprised and composed and built upon is how we keep time. How we keep time. We think about the work week. The secular world holds up Friday night as the great celebration. Sunday's kind of the day in which we scramble to get ready for the work week. Well, the Christian is called to live differently. It's challenging because everything is designed around this thank goodness, TGIF, thank goodness it's Friday. It takes real effort, especially as parents, to kind of stand fast, to maintain Sundays as the most important day of the week, to maintain some times together as a family throughout the week, and especially in those seasons which demand meditation and quiet, Advent, Lent, and to extend the celebrations of Christmas and Easter as long as we can, because we Catholics, we love to party. We party. Yes, we fast. Yes, we pray. Yes, we embrace penance, but we also feast. So let's strive and struggle to embrace this different way of viewing the changing of seasons, this different way of time. Let us strive to be examples to our neighbors, to our children, of a different way. Finally, I promise you finally, before we get into the meat of the matter, I want to remind us all of how hard the Christian way of life is, if such a reminder had to be made, how hard it is to live alone. That is, how hard it is to live the Christian faith alone. In fact, it can't be. It has to be lived in community. Extremely important. Now, brothers and sisters, your presence here on Saturday mornings is a great gift. And it's a sign that you take this seriously, and I commend you. I also want to welcome those who don't necessarily have kids in our faith formation program just yet, but are here for their own continuing edification and learning about the faith. You are welcome. It is beautiful, and I would love to hear more and more little infant kids in this space on these Saturday mornings. It's very important to support one another and to be here for each other, because it is hard to be Christian now in an intense way, I would say. So, with this in mind, I want to remind you all of a couple of opportunities to gather with fellow Christians and to support one another. We have here at Transfiguration men's nights and ladies' nights. And so next Wednesday, that is this coming Wednesday, we'll have a men's night. And because of COVID-19 restrictions, it's going to look a little bit different than in other years. But we still will gather at 7 o'clock as dudes, Christian dudes, and we will adore the Lord for some time. There'll be a fervorino given by myself and a time for confession. We'll conclude at 8 o'clock. There will be no social out in the gathering space because of COVID-19, but still a time to be together as brothers, to pray for one another, to support one another. Very important. The Christian way of life cannot be lived alone. And then for the ladies, next Wednesday, so not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, same format. 7 o'clock, adoration. Father Lynch will be speaking. There'll be a time for confessions. Concluded at 8 o'clock, a time to be together as sisters, to support one another, to pray together. So I hope and pray that you might be able to join us either this month or in the months to come. They're generally the second Wednesday of the month for the dudes, and the third Wednesday of the month for the ladies, although check the calendar and the website for the most up-to-date details. Just 1 hour a week where you gather together in the presence of the Eucharistic King and pray for one another and pray for our parish.